Think you know the whole story? Turns out you were probably taught the half-truth. Welcome to Half-Truths. Picture the scene. You are 13 years old. You are standing in front of the bathroom mirror, locked away from the rest of the world, staring at your own reflection with a mix of scrutiny and horror. Maybe it is that faint, darkened shadow on your upper lip. Maybe it is the fine, downy fuzz on your legs that suddenly seems glaringly obvious under the harsh fluorescent lights of the vanity. You reach into the cabinet and pull out a razor. It feels heavy in your hand, a tool of adulthood. You are about to make a decision that feels monumental. But just as the blade hovers over your skin, a voice pops into your head. Maybe it is your mother's voice. Maybe it is a friend at school who heard it from their older brother. The warning is clear, ominous, and absolute. Don't do it. If you shave it now, you will regret it. It will come back, and when it does, it won't be that soft, innocent peach fuzz anymore. It will be thick, it will be dark, it will be coarse. You will turn a minor annoyance into a permanent problem. You will have a beard by the time you are 14. You will have legs like a cactus. We have all heard this. It is one of the first pieces of grooming advice we receive, passed down with the solemnity of a sacred text. It is the reason women hesitate to dermaplane their faces. It is the reason teenage boys excitedly scrape at their chins, hoping to trick their follicles into sprouting a full lumberjack mane. It is a biological cause and effect that we accept as totally, undeniably real. But what if I told you that your mirror is lying to you? What if I told you that the sensation of rough stubble has nothing to do with the density of the hair and everything to do with geometry? What if the idea that a razor can change the biological programming of a hair follicle is not just a half-truth, but a complete physiological impossibility? Welcome to Half-Truths. I am your host, and today we are going to grab the magnifying glass and look very, very closely at the surface of your skin. We are going to deconstruct the myth of the magically multiplying hair, trace it back to the scientists who debunked it nearly 100 years ago, and reveal why your eyes and fingertips are conspiring to fool you. Let us start with the story we all know. The logic seems sound because it relies on our most trusted sense, which is touch. You shave your arm or your face. The skin is smooth for a day, maybe two. But then the regrowth begins. You run your hand over the area, and it feels completely different than it did before. Before you shaved, the hair was soft. It lay flat against the skin. It was barely noticeable to the touch. But this new growth is aggressive. It feels sharp. It feels prickly. It feels, for lack of a better word, thicker. Visually, it seems to confirm our fears as well. When that hair starts to emerge, it looks like distinct black dots. It looks darker than the hair that was there before. If you shave a patch of fine arm hair, the return of that hair looks like a dark stain spreading across the skin. So, the evidence is right there. We can see it, and we can feel it. Therefore, the act of shaving must have triggered a reaction. The razor blade must have shocked the hair follicle, stimulating it, angering it, forcing it to produce a strand of hair that is fortified and robust. It is a compelling narrative because it suggests that our bodies are reactive, that they respond to trauma with reinforcement. This belief is so pervasive that it dictates entire beauty industries. We wax, we sugar, we laser, all to avoid the dreaded stubble effect of the razor. We tell ourselves that pulling the hair out by the root somehow discourages it, while cutting it off at the surface encourages it. It is a battle for control over our own biology. But now, let us pull the thread. Let us introduce a little bit of logic that starts to make this story unravel. If shaving caused hair to grow back thicker and faster, we would have solved the problem of male pattern baldness centuries ago. Think about it. If the simple act of cutting hair stimulated the follicle to produce thicker, denser growth, every man worried about a receding hairline would just need to shave his head every morning for a few months. If the myth were true, shaving your head would be the ultimate cure for baldness. The hair would come back thicker every time. Eventually, we would all be walking around with hair so dense it would be impenetrable. But we know that isn't what happens. A man who is losing his hair can shave his head for 20 years, and the hair will still continue to thin and recede exactly as his genetics dictated. So, where did this idea come from, and why has it survived for so long? You might be surprised to learn that science has been trying to kill this myth for almost a century. In 1928, a forensic anthropologist and anatomist named Mildred Schroeder published a landmark study. Mildred Schroeder was a fascinating figure, a pioneer for women in science, and she decided to put this old wives' tale to the test. She conducted a clinical trial where 4 men agreed to shave a specific patch of their faces, while leaving another patch unshaven as a control. She collected the shavings. She measured the growth rates. She measured the diameter of the hairs under a microscope. She did this over and over again, meticulously analyzing the data. Her conclusion in 1928 was definitive. She found absolutely no evidence that shaving had any effect on the width, the color, or the rate of hair growth. None. The hair grew at the same speed and with the same thickness regardless of how often it was cut. That was 1928. Since then, the experiment has been repeated in various forms in the 1950s, the 1970s, and into the modern era. Every single clinical study has produced the same result. Shaving removes the dead portion of the hair shaft. It does not and cannot affect the living hair follicle located deep beneath the surface of the skin. So, if the science is settled and has been settled since the presidency of Calvin Coolidge, why does the stubble feel so different? Why does it look so dark? Why does our own sensory experience contradict the biology? This brings us to the real story. The truth isn't about biology. It is about physics and optical illusions. To understand why stubble feels thicker, you have to visualize the shape of a natural, unshaven hair. A strand of hair is not a perfect cylinder. It is tapered. It is like a spear or a javelin. It is thickest at the base near the root, and it gradually gets thinner and thinner until it ends in a fine, wispy point. That fine point is what makes unshaven hair feel soft. When you run your hand over your arm or a beard that has been growing for a while, you are touching those flexible tapered tips. Because they are thin, they bend easily. They offer no resistance. It is like running your hand through tall grass. Now, imagine what happens when you shave. You are taking a sharp blade and slicing that shaft of hair horizontally, right at the thickest part of the distinct cylinder. You have essentially cut the top off the pyramid. You have turned a spear into a fence post. When that hair begins to emerge from the skin again, the tapered, soft tip is gone. Instead, what pushes through the surface is the blunt, flat cross-section of the hair shaft. Think of a bamboo stalk. If you touch the top of a growing bamboo shoot, it might be pointy and relatively soft. But if you saw that bamboo stalk in half and then touch the cut end, it feels hard, it feels sharp, it feels rough. The bamboo hasn't changed its density. You are just interacting with a different part of its geometry. This explains the roughness. The hair feels stiffer because it is shorter. A long rod is easy to bend. A short rod is rigid. The stubble stands up straight and pokes your skin because it lacks the length to flex out of the way. But what about the color? We all swear the hair looks darker. This is where the second illusion comes in. Hair that has been on your body for a long time has lived a life. It has been exposed to sunlight. It has been exposed to chemicals, soaps, and pollutants. Just like the hair on your head gets lighter in the summer, the fine hairs on your arms and face are naturally bleached by UV radiation and environmental wear and tear. They lose their pigment over time. New growth, however, is virgin hair. It has just emerged from the follicle. It has never seen the sun. It retains its full original pigmentation. So, against the backdrop of your skin, it looks starkly dark compared to the sun-bleached hair you are used to seeing. Furthermore, we are dealing with the contrast of the background. When you have a full head of hair or a full beard, the hairs overlap. You see a mass of texture. When you shave, you clear the canvas. The emerging hairs are isolated dots against the pale background of the skin. This high contrast makes them pop visually, making them appear thicker and more significant than they actually are. There is another layer to this, a psychological one known as confirmation bias. When we shave, we are usually doing it because we are hyper-aware of the hair. We are scrutinizing it. We are looking for it. When it starts to grow back, we are monitoring it with the intensity of a hawk. We notice the growth immediately because we are looking for it. We interpret a natural return of the hair as an aggressive resurgence simply because we are paying so much attention to it. It is also important to understand the anatomy of the follicle itself to grasp why the razor can't change anything. The hair shaft, the part you can see and touch, is dead. It is keratinized protein. It has no nerves, no blood supply, and no way to communicate with the root. The living part of the hair, the bulb, is buried millimeters deep in the dermis. It is fueled by blood vessels that provide nutrients. The razor glides over the surface of the epidermis. It never comes anywhere near the living machinery that produces the hair. Thinking that cutting the tip of the hair changes the growth rate is like thinking that trimming your fingernails will change the size of your knuckles. Or, to use an even better analogy, it is like thinking that cutting the top off a flower stem will change the composition of the soil in the garden. The two systems are connected, yes, but the action on the surface cannot fundamentally alter the biological engine underneath. There are, of course, times when hair does actually change. Puberty, pregnancy, menopause, and hormonal imbalances can absolutely change the texture, color, and thickness of body hair. But these changes are driven by hormones like androgens circulating in the bloodstream, instructing the follicles to change their behavior from the inside out. The razor is an innocent bystander in that process. So, why does this matter? Why dedicate an episode to a grooming myth? Because it reveals a fundamental truth about how we navigate the world. We rely heavily on our senses to interpret reality. We touch the stubble, and it feels coarse. We look at the growth, and it looks dark. Our brain instantly connects these dots and creates a causal link. I shaved, and now it is thicker. It is a perfectly logical conclusion based on the available sensory data. It just happens to be completely wrong. This myth persists because correcting it requires us to doubt our own perceptions. It requires us to understand that what we feel is not always what is real. We have to override our tactile experience with abstract knowledge about geometry and physics. It also speaks to our desire for control. We want to believe that our actions have consequences. If we believe that shaving makes hair grow thicker, we are ascribing power to our actions. We are the masters of our own physiology. Accepting that the hair grows according to a genetic schedule that cares nothing for our razors is, in a way, admitting that we are just passengers in our own bodies. The next time you stand in front of that mirror, razor in hand, hesitating because of a warning you heard a decade ago, remember Mildred Trotter. Remember the bamboo. You can shave, or you can choose not to. The hair will come back. It will feel rough for a few days as the blunt ends push through. It will look dark because it is brand new. But it will be the exact same hair, following the exact same genetic instructions it had before you ever picked up the blade. We often think of science as something that happens in high-tech laboratories with bubbling beakers and complex equations. But sometimes, science is just looking in the mirror and asking if what you see is the whole story. It is the willingness to question the things that feel intuitively true. The world is full of sharp edges and blunt truths. It is up to us to learn the difference between a monster and a shadow. Now you know the real story. What other half-truths are still out there? If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, and join us next time. Until then, stay curious.